In the heart of the Middle East, a nation of over 80 million people stands at a crossroads. For decades, Iran has been a geopolitical puzzle, a revolutionary state whose actions have echoed across the globe, from the oil fields of the Persian Gulf to the diplomatic corridors of Washington and Brussels. But today, the ground beneath the Islamic Republic is shifting. A convergence of internal pressures and external challenges has brought Iran to a critical juncture, a precipice where the next steps could redefine not only its own future, but the very balance of global power. What happens next in Iran will not stay in Iran. It will ripple outwards, impacting international security, the global economy, and the intricate web of alliances that has governed our world for generations. This is the story of Iran on the brink, and why its future is a future that concerns us all. To understand where Iran is heading, we must first look at the forces pushing it towards change. Internally, the country is a pressure cooker. A young, educated, and digitally connected population is increasingly at odds with the strict social and political controls of the ruling clerical establishment. Waves of protests, sparked by everything from economic hardship to demands for greater personal freedoms, have revealed deep fissures within society. The woman, life, freedom movement, which erupted in late 2022, was more than just a protest. It was a fundamental challenge to the ideological pillars of the republic. It showcased a generation unwilling to accept the status quo, a generation demanding a different future. Simultaneously, the Iranian economy is gasping for air. Decades of international sanctions, coupled with mismanagement and corruption, have crippled its potential. Inflation is rampant, the currency has plummeted, and unemployment, especially among the youth, is a chronic problem. While the country sits on some of the world's largest oil and gas reserves, its people struggle with the cost of basic necessities. This economic despair fuels social unrest, creating a vicious cycle where instability and poverty feed off each other. The government's promises of economic resilience have worn thin, and for many Iranians the daily struggle for survival has become the primary political reality. Then there is the question of leadership. The Islamic Republic is navigating a delicate and potentially volatile political succession. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is in his 80s, and the question of who will succeed him hangs over the entire political system. This isn't just about one man, it's about the future direction of the state. Will his successor be a hardline ideologue, doubling down on revolutionary principles, or could a more pragmatic figure emerge, one willing to reform the system from within? The succession process is opaque, a behind-the-scenes power struggle between factions within the security apparatus, the Revolutionary Guards, and the clerical elite. The outcome of this contest will be the single most important determinant of Iran's domestic and foreign policy for the next generation. A smooth transition is not guaranteed, and a power vacuum or a contested succession could plunge the country into a period of profound instability. Beyond its borders, Iran's position is equally complex and precarious. For years, Tehran has pursued a strategy of forward defense, building a network of proxy forces and allies across the Middle East, from Lebanon and Syria to Iraq and Yemen. This axis of resistance has allowed Iran to project power, deter its adversaries like Israel and Saudi Arabia, and challenge American influence in the region. However, this strategy has come at an enormous cost, draining national resources and entangling Iran in costly, protracted conflicts. It has also made Iran a central target. Regional tensions are at a boiling point, with a shadow war of assassinations, cyber attacks and maritime skirmishes constantly threatening to escalate into a full-blown regional conflict. The nuclear issue remains the most dangerous flashpoint. The collapse of the 2015 nuclear deal, or JCPOA, has left Iran's nuclear program largely unconstrained. Tehran has enriched uranium to levels alarmingly close to weapons grade, shrinking the breakout time it would need to build a nuclear bomb. This has set alarm bells ringing in capitals around the world, particularly in Tel Aviv and Washington. An Iranian bomb, or even the perception that Iran is on the verge of acquiring one, could trigger a regional nuclear arms race, with countries like Saudi Arabia and Turkey potentially seeking their own deterrent. It could also provoke preemptive military action from Israel or the United States, an event that would have catastrophic consequences, igniting a war that would dwarf any conflict the Middle East has seen in recent memory. The world is holding its breath, caught between the unpalatable options of a nuclear-armed Iran and a devastating war to prevent it. So, what are the possible futures for Iran? We can envision several distinct scenarios, each with profound global implications. The first scenario is one of collapse and fragmentation. If internal pressures, economic collapse, widespread protests, and a chaotic leadership succession overwhelm the state's capacity to govern, the central authority could crumble. This is the nightmare scenario. Iran is not a homogeneous nation. It is a mosaic of different ethnic and linguistic groups, including Persians, Azeris, Kurds, Arabs, and Baluchis. A collapse of the state could unleash separatist movements and ignite multiple civil wars, turning Iran into a larger, more complex version of Syria or Libya. The humanitarian crisis would be immense, sending millions of refugees across its borders into Turkey, Pakistan, and across the Persian Gulf. The resulting power vacuum would become a breeding ground for extremist groups, and the ensuing chaos would destabilize the entire Eurasian landmass. The flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical energy choke point, would cease, sending global energy prices into a catastrophic spiral and triggering a worldwide economic depression. A second, less dramatic but still transformative scenario is one of gradual reform or evolution. A new leadership, perhaps a more pragmatic supreme leader or a coalition of technocrats and moderate elements within the Revolutionary Guards, could emerge. Faced with the stark reality of economic ruin and popular discontent, this new leadership might initiate a strategic shift. This could look like a Chinese model, where the state maintains tight political control but opens up the economy, seeking foreign investment and reintegration into the global financial system. To achieve this, Tehran would need to de-escalate tensions with the West and its regional neighbors. It would require a new, verifiable nuclear deal and a pullback from its more aggressive regional policies. For the Iranian people, this might mean a gradual easing of social restrictions and a greater focus on economic prosperity over revolutionary ideology. This path is fraught with challenges. Hardliners would resist any dilution of their power, and decades of mistrust will make diplomatic rapprochement difficult. But it represents a potential off-ramp from the current collision course. The third scenario is a continuation of the status quo, but with a harder edge, a militarized garrison state. In this future, the succession battle is won by the most hardline elements of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The IRGC, already a powerful state within a state with vast economic and military power, could formalize its control over the country. Social and political repression would intensify to crush dissent. The economy would become even more militarized, focused on self-sufficiency and funding the IRGC's regional ambitions. In this scenario, Iran would likely make the final dash to become a nuclear weapons state, believing that a nuclear deterrent is the ultimate guarantee of the regime's survival. A nuclear-armed, highly aggressive, and internally repressive Iran would be a profoundly destabilizing force. It would lock the Middle East into a permanent state of high tension, marked by an intense arms race and the constant threat of nuclear miscalculation. For the rest of the world, it would mean dealing with a defiant and isolated state, similar to North Korea but with far greater resources and regional influence. The world is not a passive observer in this drama. The choices made by other global powers will be critical in shaping which path Iran takes. A policy of maximum pressure and isolation might hasten economic collapse, but it also risks pushing Iran towards the garrison state scenario and nuclear breakout. Conversely, a policy of engagement and diplomacy could empower reformers and open the door to a more peaceful evolution. But it could also be perceived as appeasement by Iran's regional rivals. The United States, China, Russia, and the European powers are all players in this high-stakes game. Their ability to coordinate their strategies, or their failure to do so, will have a decisive impact. China, for instance, is Iran's largest trading partner and has an interest in regional stability to protect its energy supplies and Belt and Road Initiative investments. Russia sees Iran as a key partner in challenging American dominance. The West is torn between containing Iran's nuclear ambitions and avoiding another war in the Middle East. The fate of Iran, therefore, is not a distant, abstract problem. The stability of our global energy supply, the prevention of nuclear proliferation, and the future of a pivotal region all hang in the balance. The struggles of a young woman in Tehran demanding her rights, the calculations of a general in the Revolutionary Guards, and the secret deliberations over a successor in calm are all threads in a story that will define our 21st century. The path forward is unwritten. Iran may teeter on the brink, but which way it falls towards collapse, reform, or entrenchment will be a defining moment for the world. The stakes could not be higher. What happens next will change everything. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on global events that shape our world.